from the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Sportsline.
Hey there, Sportsline on your television. Steve Lehman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on NewsChannel 5. Plus, great to have you here. Lots of things kind of in the frying pan this week. Not quite ready, but we're getting there when it comes to football season. That is for sure. SEC Media Days going on down at Hoover, Alabama, the Winfrey Hotel down there. Tennessee went today. Jeremy Pruitt spoke for a while. We'll get to some of that coming up on the program here tonight. You also have the Titans set to report next week, obviously. So football season's right around the corner. SEC Media Days, though, really kind of the story of this week. Tennessee today. Vanderbilt, Derek Mason and the boys will go down to Hoover on Thursday. You also had Georgia go today with Kirby Smart, Jimbo Fisher in year 2 at Texas A&M, Matt Luke at Ole Miss. Lots of news and notes from around the conference. And the commissioner, Greg Sankey, of course, spoke yesterday. Took some interesting things away from Sankey's talk in the sense that not a lot of news was made, but the SEC certainly does have some initiatives that they are trying to work on. Number one, increased mental health services for student athletes. This is a generation that, for whatever reason, has a lot of mental health issues that have been diagnosed more so than any previous generation at the college age. And so the SEC is kind of at the forefront of wanting to increase the resources and the help they have available for student athletes potentially dealing with that. He also talked about really working with the NCAA about having significant standards or a set of standards for across various states to try to push for regulations and correct law enforcement now that sports gambling has been legal, to try to protect the integrity of the sports on campus. I also found it really intriguing that he talked about the transparency and openness about officiating. That's something we always talk about, especially with replays now so prevalent in sports, that you never really get the chance to hear from officials after a game and hear their perspective on something. And you don't understand the rules sometime that was interpreted or what the call was made on the field. The SEC's opened up a Twitter account. They're going to try and have the head of officials talk a lot through various situations throughout the course of the year. So they're going to attempt to be as transparent as possible in terms of what officials are doing. We'll see how that works, and we'll see how transparent they ultimately are as the season goes along. But if they hit their mark on that, I think that could be a really cool thing for fans within the conference to have a better idea of the understanding of what officials are going through at the time they make the call and the explanation for calls after the fact. And finally, a baseball note that specifically Vanderbilt fans might be interested in, because Tim Corbin is so adamant for this rule change. But Commissioner Sankey said the SEC will continue to push for the NCAA to pass legislation to allow payments for a third full-time assistant coach in both baseball and softball. They were trying to get that rule passed this past spring. It was ultimately shot down by the NCAA in a vote across all of the conferences. The SEC passed it, but many others did not. And Sankey said the SEC is going to remain at the forefront, trying to push, trying to make the sport better, trying to urge other people to come along into the agreements that you have to have more paid coaches in baseball and softball in particular. He said that no one at any league looked around and said there were too many coaches in baseball or softball. They just weren't committed to giving the resources for a third assistant coach. And that, to me, editorializing here, is a travesty. Because you have those fourth assistants out there, or the third assistant, but the fourth coach out there on the field. They're putting in the same number of hours. They're working just as hard as any of the other coaches. They just cannot recruit, and they don't have any of the benefits. There's no pay, there's no health care, there's none of that stuff. They're trying to jump off and become a college baseball coach, and that's what they have to go through. and nobody should have to work that hard and get no benefits out of the situation at all. That's what the SEC and others in college baseball are trying to change. Phone lines are open as always tonight. 737-7767 is the number. When we come back, we'll get to your phone calls if you would so like, and we will also hear from Tennessee head coach Jeremy Pruitt at SEC Media Days today. We will get to that on the other side. This is Sportsline on News Channel 5+.